In this video, I'm going to cover some accessories I got for this car during a Black Friday deal for Christmas. So on the window sticker when I bought it, it said that it had an LED package, but I guess it was limited to the headlamps, tail lamps, and license plate. So as you can see, the reverse lights, the interior lighting, and the trunk lighting were very underwhelming. So it was time for an upgrade. Starting with the interior, I bought some accessories from Driven Media. Some of these are inserts for, like on the door handle, where you put your hand, the cup holders, the center console. There were some others that I wasn't too sure about, but I went ahead and gave it a go. So the main purpose of these inserts are to help protect your interior. So right there where you place your hand or right there where you put a hydro flask is just to kind of keep the plastic from scratching up, because we know that the interior in here is a little fragile. So anything you do to kind of really keep it preserved, I'm going to do my best. So I didn't use any soap. It was just literally water with a little bit of rubbing alcohol, very diluted, and I just wiped it down. FYI, I'm going to go ahead and include all the links to all the products that I purchased, just so that if you were interested, you know where to go get them. So other BRZ and 86 owners know that there's this empty shelf above your glove box. So Driven Media also created this little accessory just to kind of repurpose that space, and you can actually add a little divider. Underneath it, you can see that there's two pieces of double-sided tape. So before I applied it, I went ahead and cleaned that surface as well. So before I stuck it down, I just kind of wanted to line it up, and you do have a little margin of error on both sides, so a little bit of wiggle room before you place it down. After I lined it up, I went ahead and pressed it down and just kind of gave it a good pressure for about 30 seconds, just to allow that double-sided tape to really adhere to that surface. Driven Media, if you're watching this, I would love some red outline inserts, FYI. I had already replaced my Puddle Light, but just for the sake of showing you, I went ahead and made this video. With that pry tool, go ahead and find that little insert and then just pop it right down. To go ahead and disconnect it, there's a little button. Just make sure you press it in, and if you have trouble, go ahead and use the pry tool to press it in as well. When I received my Puddle Light, the little prongs inside were actually not aligned, so just go ahead and get like a little mini flathead and just straighten it out before you push it in. Otherwise it'll bend. So when I first installed my Puddle Lights, they were actually meant for one side. So if you install it and you look that the letters are upside down, just basically switch doors and then they'll be facing the right way. The vanity bulb is pretty small and it's not that bright, so I went ahead and got LED bulbs for that. And this little lens is all that's keeping you from getting to it. I use the same exact pry tool. Especially for the interior, make sure that the sharpest end is the side that you're using. My choice of LED bulb are from Diode Dynamics. They are American made and they have great customer service, so if you ever have an issue with your bulb, you can always reach out to them. Same tool again. Sometimes with aftermarket LED bulbs, when you put them in, they won't turn on. And it's really because they were only meant to work in one direction. So if you just flip the bulb around, it'll turn on. I made it a habit to always inspect my bulbs, whether I'm taking the old ones out and putting new ones in, but I always keep them just in case. As easy as these lenses pop out, they just pop right back in as well. How bright it was afterwards really made me happy. Like, it's so satisfying to see. Literally to see. Once I crawled into that really comfortable space in the trunk, I wanted to show you what the brake lamp actually looked like. It's really small, it's really dinky, it doesn't do anything. This is a really interesting trunk light design. I haven't seen anything like it, but I guess it protects the lamp bulb, so I can't complain. So in this kit, it came with numerous different adapters, and so you just gotta pick the one that works for this trunk, which is that one, and it'll just plug right in. Like I said, I really like lighting, so I chose the brightest light I can possibly get in the trunk because it's really dark in there, and I want to be able to see. So I'm just showing you how to connect the adapter piece to the original connector for this particular car, and then how I ran the rest of it. I was a little extra cautious with how small these are. I thought they were fragile, but they really weren't. You just got to be careful because they are really tiny pieces. But once it's in, you're good to go. I connected it just to make sure that it worked, just to give it a quick test, and I did see it illuminate. So the LED strip itself has a double-sided tape stuck to it, so before I remove that protective layer, I wanted to make sure that that is where I wanted to place it, so I just measured it out real quick. Once I figured that out, I went ahead and stuck it down. Since it's an awkward angle, I just did my best to make sure that it adhered really well, so I pressed it. I actually used a towel just to kind of run up and down the strip, just to make sure that it was adhering perfectly, because I didn't want to do this again, so I'd rather do it right the first time. At this point, I was trying to figure out how I wanted to run the wiring before I connected it in. I ended up trying this maybe 2 more different ways before I figured out the way I wanted it. And this is how it looked when I finished. I ended up running the cabling behind that and then up around that way. One of the things I really like about the owner's manual is that they actually know that these owners are willing to do basic maintenance themselves, so they actually show you a breakdown of some simple maintenance, including your reverse lights. A lot of these newer cars have fasteners everywhere, and what I hate about it is that they're plastic, and a lot of times me and plastic don't mix, so I always break stuff, and sure enough I did, but you know, it's trial and error, you kind of learn as you go. When I bought this car, I actually bought a kit that had a bunch of extra inserts like that, and also just plastic removal tools, because I already knew I was going to break stuff.
Does it come out all the way or what?
You're going to see me break this center one. There's 2 screws holding in this 4th lamp, and a 10mm socket and a ratchet is all you really need. Either you have a deep socket or a small extension, or either or. That'll help. The harness that connects to the fourth lamp is actually really short, so just be careful not to pull on it too hard. Just like I removed the puddle lamp for the door, you can just use the plastic removal tool to push down on that tab. I decided to upgrade the reverse lights, which is why I was removing this fourth lamp, but also I got a fourth brake light. I discovered that in Japan, Europe, and maybe even Australia, they have a fourth light that's factory, but for some reason we didn't get this in North America, so I thought it'd be a cool addition, so that's something I'm going to go ahead and upgrade. I'm a really big fan of visibility, so I got the brightest bulbs I possibly could get, so that if anyone's coming up from behind me, they can't miss me. So the kit comes with its own tool to go ahead and tap in the hole and drill it in. All you really need is an electric drill tool, but you can do it by hand. I just prefer to make things easier. Rule of thumb before you drill anything is to make sure that you are very certain of where you're going to drill. So what I did was I made sure that I made a little groove indentation of where the center of that hole is, as you can see here, and then once I knew where the center was, then I started drilling. Since it's plastic, it'll bust through really easily, so just be careful. There will be a lot of plastic shavings, so you do want to clean that up pretty well. And don't forget the little plastic circle that actually fell inside the brake lamp. So I found out doing this the hard way, that since it is rubber and it tapers, it gets wider as you push it in, it actually is really hard to get in there. So the first time around, I struggled trying to use this plastic piece. I ended up using a flathead screwdriver, but at the end of it, what just makes your life easier is you gotta find lube. Just add a little bit on that surface, and then that rubber piece will go right in. Once you remove that plastic cover, it'll expose the 10mm screws in order to remove that brake lamp. Sorry I didn't show you the actual removal of the brake lamp, but I did struggle a bit. So to get the wires up through behind the bumper, that USB really long cable that you see, I actually tied one end on with the wiring and then just pull it all the way through so that it can meet the brake lamp area, as you can see there. There are 3 taps that came with the kit, and I tapped into the side of the brake lamp, not the harness side of the car. Match the black wire to black, red wire to red, pink wire to blue. Before I put everything back together, I wanted to make sure all the wiring was correct and it worked. So as you can see, everything turned on, it worked like it should. And then afterwards, I went ahead and put the brake lamp back on, tucked all the wiring, and just completed the job. So one thing I really wanted to highlight was, don't do what I did. Don't use pressurized air to clean out the shavings, because they actually get trapped between the outer layer lens and the inner brake lamp lens. So that was my mistake. I learned my lesson, and so I just bought another lamp and repeated it, and the only difference was I used a vacuum. So you can see I used a vacuum and there were no pieces. Using the hose of the vacuum, I brought it right up to that hole, and then I shook the lens, I tapped it just to make sure all the debris came out. The other thing I want to mention was, I'm sure you saw how chewed up the original one was. So when I was trying to press it in, I used a flathead screwdriver, and you could see that it kind of tore up the rubber there. So I used super glue to get it back together, let it sit for 24 hours, and then I used lube this time. So I just put some lube around the rubber part there that tapers, and then all I did was really put pressure on top, pushed it in, and it just slid right in. It made it a lot easier than before.